British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. Good morning, my name is Sia Forio, and these are your morning headlines to 11 o'clock. Community groups are demanding a full investigation into the death of Vanessa Renteria. Renteria was a mother to an 18-month-old girl and a Colombian refugee who was shot dead by Surrey RCMP last week. Surrey RCMP says the Independent Investigation Office of BC was notified on September 19th about the shooting. Officers were called to a home where a woman had reportedly barricaded herself in a room with a weapon and a child. The group includes the BC Civil Liberties Association and Battered Women's Support Services. A press conference is being held this morning by the community groups at the Surrey Library City Centre branch. New Westminster police say they're investigating a suspicious death of a woman whose body was discovered on Tuesday in the city. Police say officers were called to the 1400 block of Salter Street in the Queensborough area in the early evening of September 24th about a sudden death report. According to investigators, that is when they found the body of a 38-year-old woman who died under suspicious circumstances. The department says it's now working with the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team to determine what happened. Police are not publicly releasing any other details for now. Vancouver urban planner Andy Yan says the NDP's recent housing promises to help people finance buying their first home comes up short for people who rent on low income. Yan says the housing finance program seems to be geared towards getting voters rather than dealing with renters on low incomes. According to Yan, the plan will create a new floor price for homes in BC, though specifics about the party's pitch are still lacking. Green leader Sonia Furstenui says the province should focus on other housing issues such as homelessness and vacancy control. The Wildlife Rescue Association of BC says it's dealing with dozens of injured birds that hit windows as winter migration season approaches. The association says it has admitted 81 birds that struck windows since August, including 9 nighthawks. It says migrating birds are highly prone to hitting windows because they can't see glass surfaces. The association says birds need to be cared for as soon as possible after striking a window, and around 25 million birds die in Canada each year from hitting glass surfaces. The First Nation community of Neshkaduga in northern Ontario has Canada's longest boiling water advisory at 29 years and counting. Ryan Munez twice tried to live in his First Nation home, but it was nearly impossible with young children.
And when I first lived here with my first relationship, we had so many problems in the house. It was moldy, it was broken down. We had to use a water heater, those little plug-in things, and then we had like containers with water, cold water, and we would put that water heater thing in there to warm up water just to give my son a bath, or even myself to take a bath. Like, took hours and hours, and then like we never had the proper running water, and most of the time it's just kind of like my body or my son's body used to have like these little rashes, and it was nasty. Like you could tell the water was just disgusting.
Now Munoz and his family returned for a week to visit family and friends and reconnect with the land. But he prefers his new place in Thunderbird because of the water problem at home. Live Nation plans to build a massive outdoor stadium in Toronto's northern end, and it could open up as early as next summer. Live Nation Canada executive Eric Hoffman says the new Rogers Stadium will have a capacity of 50,000.
This stadium will host mega artists, yes, but will also feature food and beverage offerings and fan experiences that resemble a first-class music festival.
These have been your morning headlines to 11 o'clock. Sia Forio, BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow. This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
What do you collect?
I collect shoes.
K-pop albums,
rocks and crystals,
Pokemon cards,
money, sports trading cards,
photo cards.
I collect jewelry from different countries I visited and from thrift stores.
Welcome back to Agree to Disagree.
This is the Cheeky Collector's Guide. So, Lauren, do you collect anything?
I don't collect anything at the moment, but I used to collect those little Disney plushies. I think they were called Tsum Tsums. I used to have so many of them. Unfortunately, my parents gave them away. I think I grew out of them, according to them. But how about you, Tammy?
Well, I have always been a Sanrio girly. I had a very modest collection of mostly Hello Kitty items when I was a kid. Obviously your parents aren't buying you toys every day.
Yeah.
But now that I'm older, I have access to adult money, I've added a couple things to that collection.
Yeah, absolutely. And collecting is such a big thing right now, and it has been for quite some time. You can collect Funko Pops, vintage art, vinyls, there's a whole range of things to collect. It's an endless world of collecting.
Yeah, and there's some real value that can be generated from these collections, especially if you manage to get your hands on something that was maybe owned by a celebrity or something that was limited edition or even first edition. There's some real big money in these collections.
Totally.
Aw, new Charizard card. Cool.
New Gym Challenge game cards.
Can G.I. Joe stop the Crimson Guard? Find out in Marvel Comics.
And that was from the Pokemon Gym Challenge card set commercial from 1999 and the G.I. Joe 1985 Marvel Comics commercial.
There are different collectors out there. People who make art, people who sell them, people who just admire them for themselves. I mean, what is it? Profit or passion or both?
You know what? I met a guy the other day who just paints on Pokemon cards.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, you can find him on Instagram. He goes by Sukoko Studio. He takes Pokemon cards, and you know how they just have a little rectangle of art where you can see the Pokemon?
Yeah.
He takes that and he basically expands the painting to fill the entire card. This is how he puts it.
Oh, I like that one. That one's sweet.
That's adorable.
Yeah, these later ones definitely goes back to my childhood where I would also stare at my Pokemon cards and just imagine what that world looked like. And I paint on everything. I try to paint on all over my sketchbooks. I just thought, what if I, just expanded the world?
Well, I'm sure that there are many out there that would probably not even think to paint over a Pokemon card.
Yeah, Sue's not painting on a first edition Charizard or anything. Most of the cards he paints on are not worth more than a couple dimes probably. But it doesn't even matter to him anyway because the value of Pokemon cards to him isn't the monetary value but the Pokemon card itself. In fact, to him, a roughed up Pokemon card is more valuable than a mint condition one because a roughed up one has all the stories and the memories attached to it.
Those ones tell more of a story, especially even if they are a little bit damaged, because for me, I want to be able to feel how do I transform it? Do I make it seem as if, the card itself was attacked by a Pokemon? How do I, incorporate that? I want to do more of that.
He also told me about the role of Pokemon in his childhood and why it means so much to him even today.
We were immigrants, so we didn't have a lot of money, so my parents got me 2 packs of Pokemon cards for my birthday. And I remember being a little kid and being they're my pets, so I'd lay them all out and then feed them goldfish crackers. And it's when I talk to people about the Pokemon cards, everybody has stories like that. They all have little things they would, especially because in your childhood, people, they would take their cards with them wherever in the rain and in puddles, and now they're able to kind of relive that.
And I'm sure that there are many people like Sue out there, but maybe not with Pokemon cards. Well, what about comic books? I met this artist a little while back who creates collages out of vintage comic books. He's a collector and an artist.
Oh, really?
Just like Sue. One thing I'm also sure of, though, is that there are a handful of people who would never even consider making art out of their collections. It's a completely different mindset.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like Paul. I met a guy named Paul who works at a collector store and is an avid comic book collector. He told me that he would never even consider touching his comic books other than admiring them and reading them. To make art? Well, he said that's a completely different ballpark.
That's not something I would do, not something I would recommend. To me, that's kind of like debasing the comic. Like, I'm a collector that likes to have his collection complete, like 100%, not with pieces missing and things out of it, right? If I see a comic like that, I wouldn't buy it because it's not for me.
Paul also mentioned that he values the profit he makes from selling his comic books.
Like, okay, this is what I used to do when I was younger. I would buy certain books and I would sell certain books, and then nowadays I look back and what I did back then, and I realized that those were mistakes, because some of the books I sold for like a couple thousand back then are now worth like 40,000-50,000. So I'm sitting there going, wow, I sold a book for 2,000 that now is worth over 50,000. I go, and I had a bunch of them. I could retire off of that stuff. I had like 20 copies like that I did, thinking, wow, I made a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. This is fantastic. Not real.
Paul and Sue are two very different collectors. I mean, one likes to make art and the other one likes to collect and make profit off of his comic books. For me personally, I wouldn't know what I want to do. I mean, I'm not an artist and I'm not a salesman either, so I'm not too sure how I would go about it. For me, when I was younger, whenever I had a collection of something, I wouldn't want anyone to touch it. I would present it really neatly in my room and just kind of admire it from a distance and then tell people to admire it from even a further distance.
For me personally, I can't justify spending money on something unless I can use it. So if I collect something, like I collect Sanrio things, if I get like a Hello Kitty keychain, I'll put it on my backpack because then I'll actively be using it and I'm actively enjoying it rather than just having it on a shelf somewhere.
And with a collection, at least for me, I wanted to complete it. And so that's what I asked Paul. I asked him,
Sue and Paul are different types of collectors, and it's because they have different values. I think Sue as a person values the artistry and the nostalgia, whereas what do you think Paul values more?
I think he values having the pristine collection but also making money off of it. Like he said, he would choose to sell certain comic books and keep others. So I think definitely a part of it is making a profit off of them. I mean, he is a manager at a collection store.
I guess they just represent the different types of collectors there are out there, huh? Because for me, myself, I think I relate to Sue more. I'm definitely not planning to sell my collection, but it's more of a nostalgia and having this that means a lot to me rather than oh, I'm probably going to sell this and make more money later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not their own collection.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a bonus. If I were to pass away, I mean, I will eventually, but when I do, it'd be a nice bonus if the stuff that I own actually has some value, and then that would benefit your loved ones, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think they share one commonality, though.
Yeah, what is that?
They both regret getting rid of the stuff they had as a kid.
Right.
But maybe for different reasons. Sue wants to be able to paint on his old cards, and Paul, he's thinking about how much his old stuff would be worth today.
Yeah.
But I think we all relate to that. You have that story about your parents giving away.
I totally have that regret of my parents giving it away.
Yeah, and I think a lot of kids feel that way, kids our age, and this is my theory. I think that's why Pokemon is coming back. I think that's why Hello Kitty is coming back, because we had these collections when we were kids and then we don't have them anymore. But now that we've come into, we have access to money and our own free will and whatnot, we can get those things again.
Totally.
This was Tammy Mack
and Lorna Chili. So whatever you decide to do,
you can collect them all,
you can paint them all,
you can sell them all.
The choice is yours.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Teresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Trett.